Okay, welcome everyone to Lunar Alchemy. My name is John and I'm here with Bella. And today we're going to be discussing the Wild Woman, the transit of Gene Key 15, which takes us from the shadow of dullness to the city of fluorescence. And the way is the gift of magnetism. Absolutely love this particular one because it is one side of my own channel of rhythm. So I'm excited about this one. And I am coming to you today from Crestone, Colorado, which is a different location than I'm usually in. And I'm down here about to climb my own mountain tomorrow to receive some divine inspiration or some rather ordinary, mundane experience. And I think that's a perfect theme for us here today because we're looking at the hexagram of Earth over mountain, or the mountain within the earth. So, Bella, I know you've been in the hot seat of discussions all day today. Tell me about the Wild Woman, or about how this energy of today's frequencies have been impacting your experience, your body, the connections that you've been cultivating. What's happening for you, and are you feeling the Wild Woman?
Yeah, I'm fascinated by this energy, and especially people that have the whole channel. And it sounded like you do have the whole channel.
I do, yes. 5 to 15. It's both an odd challenge because it's very hard for me to follow another person's rhythm if they wish me to. And then also finding the confidence in the rhythm that arises out of my own body can be a challenging experience. So
yeah, I have a lot of people in my life. Ashley, for example, has this channel, and I find it so interesting that it is collective, because it seems like, you have your rhythm, she has her rhythm, and that's the way this channel works. It has your rhythm, but it's impacting the collective. So when you are with somebody that has that channel, it's like it's their rhythm. So with Ashley, we often laugh about, I have the direction and I will say, this is where we're going. But it's wrong of me to think that we can go there now. I always have to wait for her timing. And then, a year later or whatever, we end up there. And it's just because that was the timing. So I definitely feel this in my life a lot. And sometimes it is frustrating. In my own design, I don't have a connection between the sacral and the G. So for me, I think even more because I'm a split, this is connecting me, and then I'm completely into the other, in the rhythm of the other. And with you, I feel like today I changed the time. So this is kind of like not so common that with a 5:15 I get to kind of change the time. So maybe I kind of did it unconsciously just to feel like I have some power over that 5:15. Yeah, my partner has it in his, I can't even remember where it is, what it comes from, but he even has it when he sleeps. So I feel like I'm even impacted with another rhythm when I sleep. Most of us become projectors or reflectors when we sleep, but he keeps, those are the gates that actually are part of the dream design. It's amazing. I actually, if I have to choose between the 15 and the 5, I would choose the 15. I feel that there's a resonance with the second gene key, which is my life's work, this very feminine essence. The drummer or the rhythmic, which is the 5, is kind of like, it has the same rhythm, but both the 2 and the 15, they are orienting with Mother Earth. So you were mentioning before as well with the element, and that's when the 15 is as most balanced, when she is connected to nature. And I know that Ashley often speaks about the nervous system with this gate. I I don't know that I've seen that it actually physiologically connects to the nervous system, but it has that kind of agitated energy when it's not connected to nature. And I mean, the fact that you are going out in nature now and the solstice and, being connected with the moon cycles, which is lunar alchemy, and you often, when it is the solstice or different times a year, you go out and you go to the mountain. So I feel like that is the best ally of the 15, to connect to Mother Earth, to be part of nature. And it's on the cusp, right? So it's going to be, well, it's part of Cancer. It's starting Cancer. So it's also the nurturing, the mother, the moon again, which is the planetary ruler of Cancer. And I have felt that. I have felt Cancer energy starting this week, kind of that shift between Gemini, that it's very curious and very mental, very airy, to something that it's now coming in, and it's more emotional and more watery and more nurturing. And actually the need for that, I've been trying to problem solving, I guess, even things that we had a call right before about the Ajna Center, and it has to do with problem solving, how we are conditioned to find solutions with the mind, and especially when we're trying to problem solve emotional states. It's usually like the worst way of doing it. So I've really felt the need to go from that trying to fix and the problem solving to coming into the nurturing. And maybe I have to do the nurturing of myself, to start with. And something with that, the 15, again, coming back to that, the 15 is a collective gate, gene key, but it really goes back to basics and nurtures itself and connects to nature. And that's how it's going to have that beautiful impact on the other and exude that love. That is that actually very feminine essence is what I feel, both the Cancer energy and the Earth energy.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things that I wanted to mention about what you said. And the first is somewhat personal in my own personal rhythms and your experience of saying, I changed our time today. Maybe that was some subconscious desire to be able to exert your own control in our partnership here. And interestingly, the way that this channel functions in my system is that if I reach the resonant frequency that allows me to be connected with my own nature, then the nature of all other things molds itself around my rhythm. And in your original suggestion to change the times, I did not know where I would be at what time when you made the suggestion. However, I made the agreement that this would be a time that works. It fits for you. And then the rhythm, the alignment of the rhythms of the events happening to transport me from one place to another aligned so that I was here in Crestone and able to set up ready at this time, which worked much better than it would have had we done it earlier in the day at our regular scheduled time. So one of the unusual things about having that, okay, I have my personal rhythm, is that if the resonance occurs, then nature kind of fills in the gaps and moves things around to allow for the life force to come forth. I was actually thinking about the feminine nature of this particular key. And it's really interesting. I have so many of these sort of feminine keys and feminine channels in my experience. And I have a, sort of a masculine oriented body, or at least a male body. And I began thinking about the cosmos and these roles in how they function. The city of fluorescence is about the exponential flowering, not just of consciousness, but of all life force, where at this moment at my house, all of the rose bushes are in full bloom. So there's yellows and orange and pink and red. All these bushes are just covered in flowers. And when we look at the cycles of the moon and how it relates to our cycles of life, the moon sets this cycle happening of when is the best time to plant a seed. Once that time is determined by sort of the cycles of the moon, the sun shines its rays. The masculine force shines rays on the earth, warming the earth, allowing the earth to cultivate the nutrients, the water, the environment from which this seed can grow. And that happens in the springtime, where this energy force pushes up and out of the ground, and then you have this sort of expanse of greenness. But without the continued shining gaze of the sun, none of these plants would come into flowering, even though each plant decides its own time to do the flowering that is perfect for it. And when we look at this energy of the mountain within the earth, what we're seeing is this upward pointing movement. A mountain rises out of the earth towards the heavens, but now we have a mountain within the earth. And that same force is pushing life upwards and outwards. And the continued gaze of the sun allows that upward life force to finally flower into its full expression. And so what we're seeing here is this almost a reverse in the roles. It's as if the earth has put forth this expansive power pushing upwards that's very, in some ways, masculine in quality, while the sun is nurturing with its own rays that growth of the plants, and it allows the flowering to occur. Not to say that this is a masculine energy by any means, but next to the two, you were saying, Bella, you feel some kind of a relationship with it. The two, earth over earth, the next earthiest sign in all of the different signs that are available is earth over mountain. It's the minerals of the earth beneath the earth, kind of like bringing forth life. So really a powerful energy from my experience. And because it comes to the solstice, that's where I began to look and recognize, oh, the sun is at its height of power right now. And this is when all of the flowers are just bursting everywhere. So it's very interesting how that flowering occurs with all of that solar energy that's coming down to the planet. So tell me more about this wild woman, Bella. Like, we have a lot of ideas in society about what this means. The wild feminine, the sort of, it's like this dance of ecstasy, I feel. How do you feel? The gift here is magnetism. So what is this idea of our wild woman and this expression of this energy through magnetism? How do they play together? What's going on there, and what's happening?
Yeah, I was just looking at that braid that we have in the living room library. I actually don't like it that much because the words for the 57th gene key, the restraint, I have a little bit of a hard time to tap into that, and especially restraint. I guess it goes together with modesty, for example, with the I Ching word for this hexagram. But it feels, for me, it feels like it is restricting in some way. So when I read the braid of the gift frequency, magnetism is orientation with restraint. So orientation is the earth and restraint is the mountain. It doesn't make me really happy, and it doesn't make me think about the wild woman. What I do feel when I hear your question is that we have the 14 from the tarot. So that would be the temperance, or I don't know how you say it. I don't even know if that is the word in English. Maybe I actually have it here. Oh my God, how is that possible? I take the cards, I break somewhere of all these cards of like how much, I don't know, is it 72 cards in a deck? And I take the card that is exactly the card I wanted. Like that is so crazy. So I am thinking about this, the 14, because she's in balance. And I also feel the verb here, simplification. There is something with the 15 where if we go back to the simple, the 15 comes into balance. And I can see that with Ashley, often it's like it becomes too much and she's overwhelmed. I see that with people that have this channel and they need to go back to basic, they need to simplify to that rhythm. And that is how like the water, here she is like, it's becoming in balance again. And that's for me what a wild woman is. And that's what we see with the Schumann resonance as well, which in the gene key is very much described for this gene key. The Schumann's resonance, like when it goes out of like what we usually have measured, that's when people have all kinds of ascension or, whatever problems we have. So definitely simplification, balancing, turning back to how we lived before. And then I think a lot of the problems with our rhythm, our circadian rhythm, our like everything in our whole system would come back to a more healthy state.
Yeah, so it seems that the role of our experience in society has like almost moved us into a state that has made it very, very challenging for us to remain in resonance with the rhythms of nature. Even, in the discussion of Gene Key, and Richard Rudd describes these kind of ancient cycles that people followed, where essentially everything moved more slowly, that the pace of our exchange and the pace of our living and the pace of our society has moved us out of resonance with the naturalness, the gift of the programming partner, Gene Key 10. And without that, we primarily experience magnetism through the field of charisma, meaning who draws other people the quickest, who draws the most people to them the fastest. And I don't believe that's at all what this gift is about on any level. The experience of magnetism is like the greenness, the life force that is kind of erupting from this cycle of life that's happening across our entire planet, or at least on the northern hemisphere at this time. And when a person gets a taste of that liveliness, when their life has been expressed through this sort of shadow frequency of dullness, then that taste of life is one of the things that almost becomes a primary motivator for all of the choices moving forward. It's like, is this choice going to make me feel more alive? It's like, if we've fallen into a state of dullness, we only have really two choices. It's to try and soothe ourselves out of experiencing the dullness, or go as deep as we can until we come alive through some experience that may be presented to us. And once that liveliness happens, there's the magnetism. It's that force of life that suddenly surges through us after the dullness, the repetitiveness, the sort of lack of inner connection to the driving force of nature around us, is where it feels the magnetism is coming from. It's like, oh, life is drawing me out. Life is drawing me forth. Life is essentially pulling me out of my lack of movement, my lack of change. And I think it's very interesting that Richard speaks about this gene key as encompassing all of the gene keys, because it is one of the few places, I mean, there's a couple other gene keys, the 9 and everything, where the stagnation of movement, the stagnation of change is where every single gene key gets stuck. And here it's like very, very clear and obvious what happens, the dullness. And then the magnetism of life draws us back out. And it's like, there's this video, I don't know if anybody's seen something like this, but there's a video of a giant trailer that's filled with cattle. And it was cows that were raised on feedlots where the ground is nothing but dirt and the muck that they are forced to live in, and they have these feeding troughs with hay in it and whatever else they're feeding them. And there was this huge trailer full of cattle that had been transported to a green pasture. They'd been rescued or something along those lines. And you see the door of the trailer open and this ramp comes out, and all the cattle goes out onto this green grass for the very first time in their lives. And if you can imagine a full-grown cow doing like a dance, like jumping up and around and like gallivanting all around this field, just like ecstatic in joy. To me, that's that pull of magnetism. And in a way, that description also shows us the impact of the wild woman on any of us who have fallen into a state of dullness. It's very, very powerful energy. So I want to ask you something something on a more personal level, which is essentially, how are you feeling within this spectrum of dullness and magnetism? Or do you feel that they overlap with each other? Do you feel that there's a wide difference? Do you feel that you're coming in and out of contact with that life force? What is happening?
Yeah, I would not describe my shadow states lately as dullness. I would say it's probably more on the reactive side. So it's probably more like an agitation, kind of what Ashley would speak about with the nervous system. So that kind of, it's empty, it's dull, it's boring. No, that's not what I felt. I more felt the anxiety or the agitation of things. And I do believe still that for me, why do I live by the ocean? You know, why do I sometimes have conversation with people who say like, why are you paying $2,000 more a month to live by the ocean? Because that's where I connect. And, you know, that was beautiful when I read my dad's poem in the testament that he left, where last will, where it said, you know, once my ashes are taken out by the wind to the wide ocean, know then that I've finally found the peace that I was looking for while I was alive. And that made me cry, like the whole thing, but like that last thing especially made me cry for 2 days, because I knew that that's why I was there. And I knew he was born in the Mediterranean Sea. And somehow I found my sea, I found my ocean. And that's also where 5 days before he died, I I was in this agitation and anxiety state, and I'm like, I'm going to have to find the flight. I already had a flight, but I'm going to have to find a one-way ticket, which is more expensive than a return ticket to Sweden. And then it was early morning, nobody was on the beach, and I went down and I sat in front of the ocean, and suddenly I felt, and I'm never, sometimes with Richard, his way of speaking, especially in the seven sacred seals or in the beams and these things that we use with the ambassadors, sometimes for me it's a little bit too much, because I'm like, that language is too much. And then, but the word that came for me, and that's, he has an incantation of solace, and that I think about Richard when I hear, and that was the word that came for me. Like, I found solace and I didn't need to go anywhere. And that is my way of connecting. And it's especially it's not the same with every kind of ocean. In Spain, for example, I don't feel the same peace with the ocean, because the ocean there is not peaceful. Here it's turquoise, and it's like, it's all, yeah, you know, it is very much more peaceful. Even if that day when my dad was dying, it wasn't peaceful, but it was still matching me, and not where, if you go to LA or if you go to the Pacific, you know, side, it's different. And I feel like we all have that way back, but we need to find it. And some of us have already found how to find that in nature. Of course, the same thing when I walk in the woods in Sweden. Like, that's also like, just the smell of it relaxes me. And I can feel the magnetism. I mean, even just the salt that is in the ocean, you know, already, like, just by stepping your feet into it, it's working on the mineral magnetism level. Yeah, so I don't know if that was the answer, but that's my personal, I guess, example of how I feel the wild woman is asking me to simplify. And often I don't have to do all the things that I think I have to do. It's just about coming home.
Yeah, I feel as if that answer was a perfect one for the question, especially within the context of considering, here we were in this sort of section of our transits where it was fire over earth and air over earth and water over earth and wind over earth, and, you know, like, we went through the gamut of everything being over earth, and now we have earth over mountain. It's a complete, like, flip, and we're moving from an air sign into a water sign. And yet here we are with two earth signs in seemingly an uncommon juxtaposition. How do you have a mountain underneath the earth? What is that? And as you're describing coming home, it's that vibrational resonance that we feel with the source of our life. When we talk about home, often people say things like, home is where the heart is, or home is where, you know, wherever I find this or that, or this experience of comfort. And yet comfort is one of the things that has dulled humanity into the state that we've been in, where we all have to wake up. And when we think about, where does home really live? Where is home? It's where we come into resonance with the source of our own life. We can move to a city and say, oh, I don't feel home here at all. Or you know, you're saying in Spain, the Atlantic Ocean on that side, I've seen the ocean on that side, and it's lots of waves crashing on rocks, and it's very dynamic and wild. But it's not the sort of thing that you're gonna sort of like put your little toesies in and sort of like relax yourself. It's gonna be a thing like, oh my God, I gotta watch out that I don't get washed out to sea here, because I'm not wearing swimming trunks or whatever. You know, like, you gotta watch yourself if you're getting in contact with it. But you found a place where the resonance of the frequency with the minerals of your body matches the resonance of the frequency with the minerals in the water and the minerals of the earth beneath you. And when that happens to us, it's like, oh my God, I'm home. I don't have to go anywhere to feel the source of my own life. And for people with the 515 channel, it says oftentimes we find it out in nature, that feeling. And I would say, okay, yes, that's true, but mostly because of the magnetism that happens. You know, you said it perfectly, like, oh, the salt on the sea air, it draws me toward it. I already know. I already know what I'm about to get into. And it made me think of the smell when you step inside a greenhouse. That sort of like fully oxygenated, plant-filled, sort of watery smell where you're like, there's living stuff in here, you know? And some people may like that and others may not. But for me, that magnetism happens in these lush forests where there's mushrooms poking up everywhere and green plants all over the ground. When I can smell the vibrance of green earth, then I feel as if I'm touching my own life force. But it doesn't mean that I can't feel at home wherever I am. I now live in Colorado where it's extraordinarily arid, you know. Most of the natural plants out here are these little bramble bushes that are kind of, you know, they don't set me on fire in terms of what gets my life juices flowing. But I don't feel as if I'm not at home. You know, there's a feeling of being in resonance with where I've been placed to some extent and how that journey is playing out for me. And I say that because for anyone who sees this video, whether it's for all of you who are kind enough to join us live and witness our discussion, or someone in here, that home is just a heartbeat away. That resonance. I mean, Richard is talking about this. Oh, we think about moving from the shadow to the city is like this process. And there is no process. It's just like you snap your fingers and all of a sudden you just burst into flower. And that sort of like strikes me as one of the most hilarious jokes of the entire thing that we're exploring and thinking about in terms of this spiritual evolution. So, you know, it's a lovely awareness to become a part of. So, well, I know you've been sharing today, but I wonder if you have any sort of perspective.
Yeah, my last reflection would be that we are speaking about homecoming and that the G is always where everything comes back to. And if you have done the global cycles with us, the masterclass, or any other webinar, anything that has to do with the G center, it's where we come back. It's who we are, it's our direction, it's what love is. It's really what the human experience is here for. And it's our also perception of being separate. Is that magnetic monopole that we're speaking about. So I feel that with the 15 as well, the G comes with that and say, okay, what's home? And home is here, and it's our heart, and it's in that area. So, you know, saying that it's the heart, yes, in some way it is too, in how it moves through the body. And what more? Yeah, I guess looking at the 10 as well, because it's the programming partner. We did speak about the 5, but the 10, if you have the 15 in your activation sequence, you're also going to have the 10, or if you have it in your nodes, you're also going to have the 10. So those are the opposites. And when you have both the 10 and the 15, yeah, it can definitely feel like somebody who's quite self-centered because they're in their own rhythm and they're in their own behavior. And when somebody is in their own rhythm and their own behavior, like, you know, the easiest thing from the outside, and you feel kind of pulled into it, as well. You feel influenced by it, and then you're like, yeah, you can kind of, feel that. So I feel like it's a little bit of a different dynamic. And if people have all three, well, then it's really powerful, everything we spoke about. But if you have only the channel, it's one energy. If you have only those two in the activation sequence or in the nodes, it's a different energy. But yeah, it kind of feels complete. It's a little bit shorter than our usual discussions, but it, again, if the keyword here is simplification and balancing, in a way, it's not rocket science. And it's kind of, again, coming back to the earth, coming back to the basics. So it's good that we didn't have, to make, the mind kind of games to get back there.
Yes, I love it. I felt sort of like last week when we were speaking about the 12, that my head was just literally spinning with the entire energy, which I don't have any definition around the 12 or the 22 whatsoever, so it feels very grounding for me to have this particular energy in this discussion being nice and kind of neat in a way. But I will share before we conclude and move on to the transmission that the minerals that are inside our bodies, they all vibrate as an aspect of our own individual frequency. And when Richard Rudd is talking about coming into harmony with the Schumann resonance, what's happening is the minerals begin to vibrate at the same frequency as the minerals within the earth. And this is why people talk about these things like earthing or grounding or walking on the beach and getting your magnetics kind of rearranged in your body. What's happening is the magnetism of the vibration of the planet being absorbed by your body and adopted to whatever extent you're capable of into the minerals of your body. And so there is a very, very powerful aspect of well-being within our physical bodies that is so dependent upon the vibration of the minerals of which we are made. And so what we're going to be doing in the transmission is going to be offering a frequency that allows for the harmony of the minerals of the body to come into resonance with the life force that is bursting out of the earth through that upward mountain movement that's coming from within the planetary structure. So I'm kind of excited to see how that in the bodies, especially since I'm going to be climbing a mountain first, right after dawn tomorrow. I want to be in resonance with that part of the earth in the most profound way that I possibly can, because the more in resonance when you're about to climb a mountain, the easier the climb is. It's like, Terry mentions gravity. It's almost as if gravity lets go of you just a little bit, and your way moving up is just kind of effortless. So thank you everyone for joining us for this discussion. We will be back next week. We haven't determined the actual time yet. Hopefully the construction period will be over for Bella's sake. So we'll probably be back to our regular time next Monday, but we will send out some reminders for that. And I'm sending each of you loving presence from my heart. And for our members, can now change over to the other session so that we can do the transmission. Thank you all so much for your well wishes, and we'll look forward to seeing you all next week. So bye-bye for now.